Okay,
Okay, we'll call meeting to order. Becky, you want to do roll call for us, please?
Brian Venema,
Here.
Christine Cobb. Here. Monica McHugh. Here. Emerita Key. Here. Sandra Gerlach. Here. Tom Stewart,
Yes.
Mike Burke.
Here. Okay, has everybody been able to review the minutes from the April 21, 2025 meeting? Looking for any additions or corrections?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the April meeting.
On second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. So next up is case ZC 25-02. According to my rules here, I guess we're going to ask for the applicant's presentation at this time, if they're present.
Yep,
Okay, if you'd like to stand and give us your name, please.
I'm Tyler Cipher, this is my dad, Steve Cipher. Basically what we're requesting is 2 acres of our property on 320th Street, to be rezoned commercial. Or whatever it needs to be, I believe, commercial. My dad is retiring here soon, and we're looking to utilize some of that building that we have for doing some like engine machine work and things of that nature. Yeah, that's about it. You know, it's basically we want to do things the right way, you know, get it zoned properly for what we want to do. You know, we don't want to have any issues or anything like that. So that's why we're here.
Okay. Thank you. Laura, you want to give us the rundown
Yeah,
on this?
so, as you can tell on the proposal, they're looking at the front, the first 230 feet for the rezoning. As measured from the center line of the road. So that takes us about this far into the property. And we, as a rule, don't always, well, I can't find anything. Tom, maybe you have some history. Can you ever remember where we've rezoned a portion of the property? We can, from my understanding, but to keep, okay, they own almost 18 acres, so they wanted to keep the bulk of it in ag, what they aren't going to be using for. And plus, that gives them the opportunity, they're potentially going to be building on this site. So it would give us, do you remember ever
Well,
rezoning a portion?
Lori had asked me this question on the phone a while back, and I went through and we talked about some of them, and no, the short answer is no. I
Right.
know it's possible,
Right,
but normally people want to rezone a whole, you know,
Yeah.
area rather than a portion
But
about this.
not when they're, you know,
But I couldn't come up with a specific example, no.
okay. But they're looking at just using a specific area for the commercial zoned, for the commercially zoned property, which they're talking about, a commercial automotive, truck and farm implement repair. And, you can see what some of the requirements are, you know, does it accommodate growth? Encourage future growth and to occur in compact areas. I won't read through all that, but we can look through that. And I do know that you have, people that are, wanting to talk that have, so when you open up the public side, I do know you're gonna have some people there. So any other questions from me? It fits in with, you know, the land use. Keeping things on a hard surface road, but at the same time, I don't have any direct concerns myself.
Okay. Well, according to the report that we have in our packet, I didn't see anything
Okay,
specific there either.
okay, and
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, just because I can't remember of us doing it, I looked it over too, and I didn't see anything specific that troubled me with it either.
yeah, I did reach out to another zoning administrator and she's like, yeah, we got them everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like, really? I wasn't calling up to or excuse me, Clayton. So, but yeah, they have properties that are rezoned specific to a building.
Really?
And I'm like, ooh. But until less than a half hour ago, I had not heard of any concerns. However, that has changed. So,
Okay, so I guess at this time we can open it up for public comments. So whoever, did we have a sign-in sheet?
yeah, so you have one here, but you're gonna have a few
We have
online.
one here.
but there's some order in which they can. Then there, they gotta go pro first, and then,
Oh, I don't know about that.
We haven't had to worry about that in a while, so,
the way we used to do
Oh.
it, with the people in favor,
okay,
if there was anybody in favor, they would comment.
okay,
And then, so we didn't have a mismatch of
got it,
one person wanting it and the next person not, and back and forth.
got it. So Mike,
Okay,
yes,
we
you
can, we
want
can
to
do it that way, yeah. So we'll do the pro people for the rezoning change first.
okay,
If there's anybody here first, we'll take those people first. We'll limit it to 3 minutes. Monica, you want to do the timing? So is there someone here that's for it?
okay.
Okay, then we'll go to whoever's on,
I'll go
Zoom.
start down the list, okay, let me open this up so I can see.
Hold on, wait a
Chase,
minute, wait a minute.
whoops, sorry.
Before you do that, do you already have another repair location?
Yes, so I have got, it's called Cyber Performance, but I do a lot of, the majority of my business is remote. I do a lot of tuning and stuff like that. I do get, I would say 5 to 10% of my business. I have people that drop their vehicles off and, you know, we tune them and stuff like that in person. This is not Cyber Performance at all. This is, you know, basically, so I'll give you a little bit shorter or a little bit longer rundown. So my dad did engine machining professionally for about a decade at Grove Automotive in Butte. And so, he's got a really strong background in that, stuff like that. And, he is retiring, you know, very soon. And we have on the side, since he quit Grove, done custom engines for people for as long as I can, since I was this tall, you know? And, with that being said, we want to, when he retires, he's gonna have some time to fill, so he wants to be able to, you know, do this and do it appropriately, and do it as a service that, you know, generates an income and, pays taxes, so we wanna do it right, you know, we're not trying to do something under the table or anything like that. My dad owns Cypress Apple Orchard, and I'm sure a lot of you are probably well aware of that. That takes a good 4 months out of his year, to just do that. So this wouldn't even be a full-time thing at all. There's not gonna be any sort of, traffic or customers coming in and out. The engines that get built largely are all paid for and spoken for. And the only time that there's customer interaction is when they pick it up. It's not like there's general public coming in and viewing things or anything like that. It's a very low key, someone requests an engine build, you do it, you know, whatever it takes, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it may be. When it's done, they come pay their bill and pick it up. Yes, there will be things that, I mean, of course, if there's something that I need done engine wise for Cyber Performance, I'm going to have my dad build the engine, you know, I'm not gonna outsource it somewhere else, so, those two will work hand in hand together, which makes sense. But there is no cyber performance stuff that's going to happen at that property, if that makes sense.
Are there any other employees besides the two of you then?
No, just us two.
And where is your other business located?
It's right on, Highway 52 South, it's in Dubuque County. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Steve Seifert, Tyler's dad. Yeah, I'm gonna be retiring and this is going to be basically, a machine shop. We don't have much room where we're at left. We thought with this building we have, maybe we could put the machine shop down there, not a full-fledged machine shop. But we're starting to buy some stuff because the lead time on getting these engine blocks and stuff machine is just terrible. I mean, you're not talking 6 months, you're talking almost a year sometimes and things like that. And the lead time for our business, you just can't do that. So we thought, well, maybe we'll purchase some machines and start machining some of our own blocks, stuff like that, to get the lead time down. And that's where this is all generated. And that building is the room that we have. That's why we're trying to utilize that space now that our lead times are so great with the other machine shops. That's where this all kind of came to be.
So this is an existing building,
Yes.
and how big a building is it?
60 by 80, it has a 20-foot add-on on the side closer to the road. Currently I keep implement stuff in there. I've got cattle, I've got, some crop ground that we rent and that we use. So that's basically that's for.
Okay. So Lori, you wanna find something on there that?
Sure. Chase, could you unmute, if you have any comments or concerns? There you go. Chase, can you unmute?
Nope.
There you go. Whoops, okay.
No,
There you go. Whoops, Chase, you're muted again. Try it again.
Thought he said no issue.
Oh, no issues? Okay. I couldn't understand him. Beshin, do you have a comment? Do you care to unmute? This will be your only time for public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm right next to them. I'm directly west where their building is.
Can you,
I-
please, for our records?
What's that?
Can you identify yourself for our records, please?
Peggy Beshin?
Thank you.
You bet. I guess my only concern is that I know they said there wouldn't be a lot of public, that kind of thing. Most of us, I think a lot of us out there are out there for one reason. We like being in the country. It's nice, it's peaceful, it's quiet. We don't really want to be by businesses. I have miniature horses right there type thing. I've had them up there close to 30 years now. So that's kind of a concern. But the other thing is once it's rezoned to commercial, and even if it starts out like that, is it going to be something that possibly in the future grows and gets larger? And, now we do have more traffic and more business and types of that going on. I guess that's my concern. And you're going to have delivery, I would imagine, of engines and parts and stuff like that coming and going. That probably won't affect me as much as maybe Carenza and Kettman's across the way type of thing. But I don't know. I don't know how they have that planned out, and I don't know how big of trucks will be coming in for deliveries and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to Papa T's cell phone.
that's my son Devin doing that to me a long time ago. That's Terry Keeter. So I'm the neighbor to the east, next to Chase and Tyler. So, I obviously don't have any concerns with Steve and Tyler doing, their machine work in there, et cetera. My only thing was Peggy mentioned it earlier, the noise a little bit relative to the noise and being peaceful and quiet. I mean, there might be a potential someday I build right next to that, Tyler. So I just want, to have a little bit of concern there, just as far as I don't know, what kind of testing you have to motors and things like that. The other thing is, just, the things outside, but I know I can't control that. That's everyone's own business as far as what they have. But, especially if we're going to build next door someday, I just want to make sure my value of my land just doesn't decrease because we're, the approval. But, good for Tyler, good for Steve. I'm happy for you guys. I don't have any concerns really as far as what you got going on, but like, Peggy said also, like the future, like you sell the building or something like that to somebody else. Is there any restriction on that as far as commercial, or can anyone just then buy it from a commercial standpoint and do whatever they want to with it? That would be my question.
Great, thank you.
Pat,
Hey everybody, so this is Pat Ketman. We live right across 320th Street from these guys. So I guess, the biggest concern, one of them, I guess, the noise that's been brought up too. If you're doing performance engines, how do you test those out and rev them up, make sure they're going to perform to that point? Another one was just from a safety aspect, if there's to the deliveries and if there's semi-trailers with performance vehicles on it. I know the implements, like they've been kind of in and out, and there's semis or anything parked alongside the road there. That's my concern, but I think that's the bigger one. So yeah, happy to support small businesses. I'll say that for sure. That's awesome. You guys are doing that. But yeah, as a resident nearby, the quiet and then just the traffic of things. And like Terry mentioned, the property value, does it increase, decrease? And if it is sold down the road, what turns it to being a bigger implement that starts, say they're doing pulling tractors or anything bigger, louder, I guess is our concern. That's why we bought our property over here, is the quietness. We're kind of out in I'll say the middle of nowhere, more so of Jackson County, and appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
all I can identify this phone by is Samsung SMG. There you go.
This is Karenza Ketman, and Pat pretty much spoke for both of us. And yeah, just very concerned about, that's what is going in there right now. But in the long run, when is that going to change? And yeah, we've had the traffic issues and concerns about the property values and stuff. And we're there for the peace and quiet. And it doesn't, I guess, doesn't quite fit the bill for peace and quiet, I guess, kind of in some of our feelings. So.
Thank you. All right, and now I have one that's just identified as, well, here, I'm going to jump down to the one where I have a phone number first. The 581-5344. There you go.
Yes, I'm Tyler Peters. I live down the road next to Peggy Beshin. Yeah, I have the same concerns, kind of. We've seen a lot of heavy equipment getting offloaded on the highway there, and once they get it zoned commercial, they could pretty much do whatever they want with it afterwards also, or if they sell it. That's what I'm kind of worried about. How big is this going to get? It might start out small, but then end up being a big operation. And there's a lot of, people are going to get cars and stuff like that, and I got a feeling, I don't know if they're going to be putting engines in there or if they're going to be putting it somewhere else, but if somebody gets a new engine, they're going to want to test it out. And we have like a mile straight stretch right in front of my house, and people have been running up and down the road already. And I don't want that to happen any more than it already is. I just, like everybody else, want the peace and quiet. And I'm glad that there's small businesses coming up and stuff like that. And everything's good that way. Just, we moved out of town to get away and be in the peaceful country. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is just iPhone. iPhone, do you have any comments? Person that's just identified as iPhone, if you have any comments, please unmute. This will be your last time to comment. Mr. Chair, you're moved there.
So
Probably can't rebut any of those comments.
okay,
That was, we used to have a.
so have we gone through all the pros and the cons?
To the best of my knowledge, we've covered everybody that's here on the.
Okay, okay, that's what I want to make sure.
Oh, well, excuse me. We haven't got
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Knief yet.
I'm Gary Knief. I live at 2994. It's the farthest house there on the left there. This property actually belonged to my grandpa and grandma at one time. Concerns I've had on this is, like, if it does get rezoned and, if they wanted to sell it, and I've seen it sold numerous times, let me see, I'm trying to think. It was sold in 99 for the first time from my grandmother. And it's been resold, to my knowledge, 4 times. Another concern I have is that I come home where they're unloading heavy equipment in the dark, a foot and a half onto the highway, which I feel is very dangerous. Another thing I have is they have an identical building to this. I'm trying to figure out why they're not using that, and because I was under the assumption when they built the building, they were going to use it for storage. So that's my concerns.
Those people back.
They're here for something else.
We're just here to listen.
Oh, okay.
Well, excuse me, I assumed that you were here for something else. I'd hate to have you.
So, yeah, we'll ask for any rebuttal from you gentlemen. Anything
Well, I'd like to say something. That's the reason why we're only asking for 2 acres, because that's what we want. The concerns of it growing to be larger, that's why we're only asking for 2 acres to be rezoned instead of the 18 acres. The other thing is, for the noise, we're not planning on doing any engine installs there or anything like that. This is gonna be the machine shop, and if anybody knows what an engine machine shop is, it's just machining the engines, assembling them. The engines will be put in at the customer's site most of the time. We very rarely put in an engine, and things of that nature. And the building that we did put up over there, that is storage. That's why we're not using it for this. And that's why we're trying to do it down here.
I'll add, so yeah, so there'll be no testing of the engines, there's no testing of cars, there's nothing like that. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the machine shop at all or not, but, there's not much noise. It's all inside. A lot of times you don't even open the doors because during the summer you don't want the moisture in, and obviously during the winter it's cold. So, you know, you don't want moisture on a fresh engine to get rusty or anything like that. So, the minimal amount of noise that the machining equipment would make, you probably can stand right outside the door and not hear it. As far as testing stuff going up and down the road, like my dad said, the little bit of installs we do them at our other shop on 52. And that's, to be honest with you, I don't like even doing that stuff. I would rather do the engine, give it to the customer, let them install it, and then we tune it remotely. Which, you know, we do that through their cell phone now. It's pretty crazy, but anyhow, that's kind of the business model there. As far as everyone's concerned with if the property gets sold and remains commercial, what could someone do with it? Yes, I agree 100%. I would not want that next to my property either, someone, so, you know, so I'm okay with. If we have to do something differently there, if we sell it, it has to get zoned back ag or whatever, I would be completely okay with that. I'm not looking to zone this commercial and try and sell it for more money or something. That's not, we're looking to do this through the proper channels so we can, again, you know, have a revenue stream for my dad when he retires and, fill a void that we desperately need because we can't wait. Well, you know, if you tell a customer they have to wait 12 months to get an engine back, I mean, that doesn't work, you know?
I got
Yeah,
a question and then a comment. What about this offloading of machinery on the highway?
yeah, so, I've got a lot of, machinery. I've got, skid loaders, excavators, stuff like that. I do a lot of, like, we've got, different properties around and quite frankly, I'm a big kid. When I got bigger, my toys got bigger. I like my big toys and some people spend money on liquor, some people spend money on other things. I spend money on equipment. That's what I like. They're my toys. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, I didn't like my equipment. So I've got a 135 John Deere excavator, a D6 dozer, 750 dozer,
So are any of these things related to the business we're talking about? These are just personal?
these are personal.
Okay,
items,
that's what.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I try to.
So
offer-
you, even if we did the rezoning, you might be doing that part anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's all my,
Okay.
like I said, that's, yeah.
And then my comment is, hey, Monica, we can do a rezoning with restrictions. It's an inside, that's an inside joke.
So with the, unloading along the highway, is there somewhere where you can get the truck off the road into your property?
There is, and the guy who hauls my stuff back and forth, you can easily pull in there with the tractor trailer, it's not a problem. He's actually a good friend of mine. If that is a concern, I'm completely okay with telling him, hey, you've got to pull in there and unload. I'm cool with that, because that's safety, and I didn't even know that happened. I mean, I don't, a lot of the stuff I don't haul myself unless the small stuff, I mean, I'm sure everyone sees me in and out with the pickup and the trailer and stuff like that, that's me. As far as semis, that's not me, you know, but I can't legally haul an excavator or a dozer, I have to pay to have that done, so, at that point, you know, hey, and I try to tell them that, some of them, I don't think they can pull in there, but they can, you know, so I can make a better point to make them, you know, tell them, hey, you gotta pull in, I'm completely fine with that.
And we made the driveway larger.
We did, I mean,
So
Terry,
they can do that now. That was in the early stages when we put the building in. You
there's
know,
actually
we put a bigger rock in and.
yeah, there's a fiber line there, and I talked to Terry Keeter about moving fence posts, so we could actually make it, so we could do just that. And he was completely fine, okay, yeah, do that, it sounds good, and so, but yeah, anyhow.
But in other words, that unloading and loading of equipment will happen whether this gets rezoned or not.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Okay, that's what, it really has no issue with the rezoning part.
yeah.
So I'm saying.
Has anybody got anything else? Guess we're done.
May I just, this is just a carryover. We failed to shut off the chat feature, but since it popped up. Self-rezone, is there any control over what changes can happen as for a business? Or will they just need to fight that if it does? Well, because I remember a couple years ago when we were looking at a rezoning of a certain church up north of Lamont. People worried about a gentleman's club coming in, so they wanted to fight that because, you know,
Well,
so because you don't know what could come in later.
well, we get back to a philosophical discussion here. Back when David Manning was zoning administrator, we would oftentimes zone with restrictions specifically to that zoning. And I know Monica rails at that.
I hate that.
Yeah,
I
but-
really do.
But That was a standard practice in the past, and it was a useful tool.
And my argument against that is we're rezoning, and if somebody's going to buy a piece of property, it's gonna be important for them. I don't think we should place restrictions on it like that. That's always been my philosophy, and that's where Tom and I have always differed.
Yep, we have always
We've
differed on
always
that.
differed on that.
Yeah, and I respect that you have your position, even though it's wrong.
Well, and you have your position, and it's wrong.
Yeah,
It was
right.
wrong when they did it before.
Yeah.
May I add in, the comments about selling the place and stuff like that, I know things can happen, things can change, whatever, that property is not going anywhere, I mean, that's gonna likely get handed down to my children, you know, it's paid for, it's not going. And that'd be the last thing I would sell.
Sure, we appreciate that, but things do change, and we have to think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
May I ask Tyler a question for you
Sure.
guys? Something I kind of, we talked quite a bit. Do you mind, Mike?
No, that's fine.
Okay. You had talked that someday you're hoping to build on this property.
Yeah,
Or that's
possibly.
a long-term plan. My thing, when he mentioned that, I'm kind of like, well, how soon? Because that could speed this up without a rezoning as a home-based business,
Sure,
since they're living on it, and home-based businesses don't transfer. And there are limits on home-based businesses. That's not the case now because there is no home on that. So that
Right.
would leave out any options of home-based business unless the owner actually resided on the property.
I see.
But that's kind of meets Tom's criteria. So if it sells or changes hands, that goes bye-bye. The home-based business, because that doesn't transfer from property owner to property owner. It's to that specific property owner for that specific business.
Right, and that's basically what I'm talking about, and what he also already said that he would be okay with is if something was to happen in the future, it would revert back to ag. And then the next person who wanted to use it would have to have it rezoned again, thus going through this whole process again and allowing neighbors to voice their concerns at that point.
And that's where I don't like to have restrictions based on, okay, when it's sold, it reverts back. And part of that is because we're policing again, if it sells, do we really have all the communication and all of the zoning? So we're putting more restrictions on, more things on the county employees monitoring all of this stuff. So that's number one. But number two, if we've got a business there, they're looking at 200 feet, they're not looking at doing the entire parcel. There's only 200 feet that would be considered commercial. Well, you're not gonna have an explosion of business on 200 feet of property. And so for something like this, I don't think we should put any restrictions on it. But if there is a home that's put on it, would it revert back to, could it revert back to ag?
Or could they come before and ask for it to revert back to?
It's gotta be ag, because the
will, yeah.
part that they're not rezoning is where they'd be building, and that is still zoned ag.
Right.
And
So-
I was gonna say, Monica, before we get mired down in the whole restrictions on zoning, we are talking of small parcel.
Right.
So only so much could go there, so,
Right,
yeah, if we rezone the 2 acres commercial, it's not like a big business is gonna come in and
exactly.
fill it up. So, yeah, okay.
And I mean, as far as like the tractor or for the trucks and things like that, Tom, how many of us farmers have big semis come in? I mean, to load grain and sometimes end up on the highway or on the road.
Yeah.
I mean,
Comes all the time.
it does. So I understand where the neighbors are talking about this, but you've got ag run around there. And my comment is, you're saying this about this piece of property. What about the farmers around that have trucks that come in and load?
Right.
So I understand where you're coming from. I get it. I understand the safety issue. But farmers do the same thing now, so why are people upset about a business that may have equipment, grain potentially come in? So I just playing devil's advocate there.
No, I get it.
I wanna add to, so our, like the parts that we get for engines, stuff like that. They're not,
They're not gonna be on a
Likely.
semi, they're gonna be on a
if
delivery truck.
anything, they'd be on a
freight truck.
UPS truck, but as it stands right now, they're not gonna get delivered there, they get delivered to the other, cause that's where we get all of our packages at one spot. You know, and then we can disperse from there, it's just much easier, you know what I mean?
So whether it's rezoned or not, you're still gonna have semis with your toys on it.
Right.
So it doesn't really, doesn't
doesn't
matter
matter.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
Basically, okay.
So we do need to close the public hearing first, folks.
Yep.
For that, okay.
Need a motion for that? I'll move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so now we can move on to discussion. And according to what we learned in Dubuque, we need to have a motion and a second to even discuss it, right?
Yeah, so I would move that we rezone the 2 acres to commercial with no restrictions.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay, now we can discuss it.
For the sake of learning, Tom, what type of restrictions would you have in the past placed on something like this?
It would be like, if it was to be sold in the future, to be revert back to ag, you know, something in that nature. But like I said, with this small parcel, I'm not gonna fight that battle here. I don't think it's necessary. I think that is a useful tool in other situations, but here, I don't think it's worth, just putting a restriction on it.
Okay, thank you, because it's not really suitable for, I think.
It's, yeah.
So just to be clear, if they do want to build a home on this property, they could not build it on the commercial, if we change it to a commercial zoning, right?
They wouldn't be building on that portion of the parcel, they'd be
It'd have to be
building,
behind the 200 foot,
correct, behind the 230 feet.
just so everybody's clear on it.
Yeah, and we've already talked, he's
Okay.
talking more like if he was to
Just
build,
make sure that everybody knows that.
if he was to build, it'd
It'd
be
have to be
in the
more
center.
than 200 foot from the center of the room,
Yes, well,
plus the
Well,
setback.
but you know what? That really, I mean, who cares where he builds on his property?
Well, no, I'm
Well,
just saying you can't
we
build it on
do.
a commercial
Well,
property.
we do.
yeah,
he wouldn't be able to build on that commercial
Right.
for,
I'm
for
just- that's what I
residential.
just want to clarify.
and I understand that, but I mean, where he build, I mean, if.
No, I don't care where he builds, no, but I'm
But
just
if he
saying,
would
but he
build,
can't do it on the first 200 foot.
but if he would decide to build there, he could come back in and ask for a rezoning.
Yeah, you're correct about that.
So,
I'm just saying, as if we change it to the zoning, we'll not be able to until it's changed back to something
Right.
else.
yeah.
Okay, okay. Is there any more discussion on this?
May I,
Yes,
just
you
from
may.
experience?
Yes.
One of the things, that the neighbors are concerned about, of course, is noise. They're out in the country for peace and quiet. If this business is supposed to operate inside of a building, it will be with doors shut. If you guys would want to have restrictions for, implementation of creating quiet, I'm sorry, I can't even think. But
Noise level,
noise control by working with doors closed.
noise mitigation.
Just to preserve.
Monica
the-
doesn't like.
I don't like those because. You know.
And
And
then-
Mary, that would have been another thing we could have done. We could have put noise limits on it, yeah.
But if he's bringing in dozers and things like that, that are, personal, that's gonna be louder than what's coming out of the shop. So you can restrict the shop, but neighbors could also complain about the equipment that's being on there.
Right,
So why would you wanna do that?
okay.
Just-
Did you ever set restrictions for time, hours of operation?
Yeah,
Now, while I've been on the board.
no, not when Monica's been on the board, but yes, we did.
I'm just looking for, options that might help quell some of the concerns.
Can I just say something? If the family themselves were to build on that property and they were to do it to be in the country for peace and quiet, are they going to want something loud there either? So I think if they were there, they would want to be treated the same as their neighbors, or not want something loud in their front yard either.
Let's talk later. I got a case up north of Lamont we'll talk about.
Well, I mean, I'm just.
Yeah, I have some cases that are, put a bad taste in my mouth here, just. Most of us would think that way, Sandra. But yes, if I was working next to my own business, I'd want to make sure it was quiet. So there's a motion and a second.
Yeah, let's move in 1 second. If everybody's done with discussing, we'll vote.
We're gonna have to roll call. Do you want to roll call on it?
Yeah, we're gonna do roll call.
Okay.
Brian,
And just reread the motion, just to make sure everybody's clarified and what we're voting on.
move to rezone the front 230 foot. To commercial with no restrictions.
Okay.
Brian Benjamin,
Yes.
Christine Cobb,
Yes.
Monica McHugh,
Yes.
Emerita Keys,
Yes.
Sandra Gerlach,
Yes.
Tom Stewart,
Yes.
Mike Burke,
Yes. Passes.
Thank you.
Well. Send it to the board of supervisors. That's you. Yeah. Hey, nice job.
Yeah, that should have been part of your motion to recommend approval.
Oh, yeah, right.
I recommend approval.
Pretty sure that's what I heard.
Order provided.
Okay.
seconded.
Are you saying back?
Seconded by Chris.
That was the intent.
We know, we know. But, okay,
So now, do we do the items from the public? Or was that considered part of that? In our agenda? Okay,
we can go through that right now.
okay.
And then we have our other,
Then we have the stuff from Laura next.
yeah,
Okay. So does anybody else from the public have anything to bring up?
Randy, Rhonda, any comments? Okay. All right, because this will be the only part of the meeting where you guys would have an opportunity to speak. Okay,
Nothing new from all the.
okay, all right.
Okay, so we can go to Laura then. She's still with us.
There she is. All right, Laura, we're ready for you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Both the same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck.
So, and
Thank
Tyler,
you all.
the next step is to get this in front of the Board of Supervisors. It's not a done deal until they approve it.
Sure.
So, and they will also open up for public comment at that meeting. So
Is that,
they recommend. And then the Board of Supervisors has to approve.
Sure.
Okay,
is that one that we should be present in?
probably.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll let you know when it is.
Let us know.
Yeah,
Okay, Thank you.
yep. All right, Laura, let me get back to our packet here. I apologize for taking your time here.
No, that's okay. No worries. I was working on other stuff. No
Well,
problem.
I said we're ready for you, and then I decided to talk, so,
Pay any attention to that?
No problem.
all right. Uh, okay. Oh, man, I did that and we just kind of. Let me see if there's another way to do this where I can see it better. Well, you guys all have it in front of you, right?
Do the plus at the top next to ask, there you go.
But then we don't see the whole thing.
It's okay, scroll as we go through, we can scroll as we go through.
Okay, got it. Okay, Laura, now we decided we're ready.
So are you sharing your screen?
Oh, you're not seeing it?
Hmm.
Well, let's try it again.
Okay.
Now we're good?
Okay.
Okay.
That looks like the right stuff.
All
Okay.
right.
So we'll just kind of walk through this cover sheet for you, and then we'll start getting into the items that are listed here. In terms of the website, we continue to post the work session packets as the meetings are concluded. And so we have the first 4 work sessions posted. For tonight's meeting, we're looking at revised draft chapters and some other updates. What I'd like to have happen at this point, given where we're at in the schedule, is that we could have review and approval by consensus. You can, of course, make motions and recommend changes. I'm just trying to nail things down because we're getting into the home stretch here. So I like to be able to know what we're at, where we're at, and what we're going to be proposing for that formal public hearing. So we'll have those also some proposed rules of procedure. If we have time, those have been included just as part of this process. The chart at the bottom is the project schedule. It's been revised. The changes are shown in red. Just basically just to show that we are continuing to post on both the county websites and the ECIA websites with those packets, and our intention is to continue to do that. The Board of Adjustment, we've got 3 meetings with them. We meet with them next Monday. Just because of their scheduling, it took a little longer. So really kind of minor changes, and moving everything out still within the time frame of the contract at this point. So with that, Lori, we could go to the next page. So the first chapter that we wanted to review with you was chapter 3. This is for administration and enforcement. Basically, this is the chapter that describes the zoning commission's, the zoning administrator's role. In here, have identified a couple of updates. We have a new section about general procedures. We wanted to suggest that it's clear there's a pre-application conference. You pay a fee, you submit an application, and there may be approval and referral of the application as part of our process. We also have a new section we want to test with you for administrative waiver. A chance to modify some setback requirements that meet criteria that are established by ordinance. Would take the fairly almost routine caseload for the Board of Adjustment, would reduce that with their property improvements underway. The other new section is pretty simple. We talked about it in. We've moved some things into temporary use permits. that approve, again, moving these out of the special exception realm for the Board of Adjustment. So we're going to ask you to review and comment on this, and then provide the actual regulations now, Lori, please.
Okay, and just to let you know, it's either us or you. I'm not sure whose Wi-Fi is causing us problems, but.
Okay, I think it's mine.
Okay.
So please let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay.
I got a message, it was unstable, and then it went right away. So hopefully, are you hearing me okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Let's move ahead then. On this first page, we have removed a section on interpretations of provisions. It's actually already in the ordinance in an earlier chapter. And then, let's see, I'm not sure what you're seeing. There we go.
I'm looking
Okay.
at Chapter 3, Administration Enforcement.
Okay, now I can see it. Thanks.
We're in the red line.
Yeah. It doesn't, on my screen, it's not showing the whole thing. Is it that way for you too?
Well,
okay, that's okay.
yeah.
All
Our
right.
audience see that, and are you guys okay following on your paper versus
Yeah.
on the screen? Okay.
You guys okay not seeing it?
You can scoot up.
Yeah, that's what I told them earlier.
I mean,
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, I was getting a little, the way it's showing up on my screen is a little different maybe than what you're seeing, or maybe not.
we have it zoomed out now.
If you need to zoom it in for your audience, that's fine. What we did here was, when we took this section out, we added that section I talked about for general procedures. Talks about the pre-application conference, application and fee. The language that's in red is new. The language that's in green is original language that's been moved and maybe altered a bit. Okay, so that's what we have on this page. We can go to the next page if there aren't any questions. One of the things I thought was important to add is to reflect how things are actually done in terms of the zoning administrator approval and referral. From past experience as an interim acting administrator for the county and working with Lori, we know sometimes things have to go to another department. They might have to go to another agency outside of the county. And so we want to make people understand these are some of the things that could happen. There are also cases that have to go on to the zoning commission, the Board of Adjustment, the supervisors. There's also sometimes where, as a zoning administrator, you may not feel you have the confidence to make an interpretation, and that it is okay for you to ask for some help from your commission or your Board of Adjustment or Board of Supervisors following through the procedures. And we really, this is just really to kind of lay things out as a transparency for everyone on what the administrator's role is and what the responsibilities are when there are other parties involved in the review and approval process. Okay. The next page, Lori, I think is pretty minimal. It's just move some language. That's the green cross out. We move that to the earlier section. Let's go ahead and move to the next page, because that's where we have some changes we'd like to review with the commission. This is the section that talks about the administrative waiver. This is based on something that we instituted in the city of Dubuque. It was intended to take cases that were just a certain percentage of a setback requirement. The adjoining neighbors had no trouble with it. They signed a piece of paper that said they were okay with it, and the zoning administrator was able to approve it, and that project could move forward. And so this reduced the caseload for our Board of Adjustment significantly and allowed people to move their projects through in a much shorter time frame. Just like in Dubuque, we had a set of criteria that had to be met. What we're proposing here is the criteria that's currently in the ordinance that the Board of Adjustment could grant by special exception up to 50% for quantitative requirements. And our recommendation is we stick with that current 50%, but we have the opportunity for someone to work with the adjoining property owners and get their project approved at the administrator level. So there are certain things it has to meet. In addition to that, it's basically things that require it to comply with the ordinance and all other fashion. And those are listed out here.
Not real sure I like the waiver.
You know, she was laughing at you.
Yeah, I know.
Let's go to the next section, because I want to show you. Can we go to the next page, Lori?
You heard Monica, right?
Yep, I did, but
Okay.
I also am
Just
not,
making sure.
I'm
Okay.
not all the way through the process, so I'd like to let her have.
In all fairness, Monica, I had questions about it too.
Okay, so then on the next page, we have talked about what happens if what are the conditions. All of the abutting property owners have to agree. The contact with the abutting property owners is handled by the zoning administrator, not the applicant. And it's something that we discussed with the staff, that it could be done in a fairly timely manner, 15 days for the property owners to respond. If they don't respond, then the applicant still has a couple of options. One option is to build according to the current regulations. The other is to go to the Board of Adjustment for a special exception. So here's the rationale behind this. In an analysis done by the staff of the Board of Adjustment cases, a predominant number of the special exception requests were for setbacks within the 50% quantitative requirements. They were, in almost every case, approved by the board. Suggesting that, given the number of them, this is an area where you should adjust your ordinance to make it easier for people to get that approval without having to go through a public hearing. There would be the time saved in terms of preparing cases for the Board of Adjustment versus sending out contacts to abutting owners. We did not do a time study, but I can tell you that it's a lot more work to do a Board of Adjustment staff report and all the necessary notices and work that goes with it than it is to mail out to 4, 5, 6 surrounding property owners, see if they'll sign off on a form and send somebody on their way with a zoning permit. And if they can't get the neighbors to sign, they still have a way to go forward.
He just answered my questions. Does that satisfy you, Monica?
Yeah, that does. I'm just thinking of one of my neighbors that could create
Well,
issues, so.
Well, if the neighbor's gonna create issues, then it reverts right back to the Board of Adjustment
Right.
anyway. And that my main question was 50% seems like a lot, but she answered the question that normally it's less than 50% anyway, and
Yeah,
it's
and,
well within the parameters.
So here's my question, because this, obviously staff put this together.
Right.
And he said most of the time, or the majority of the time, the Board of Adjustment approved these. What percent did the Board of Adjustment not approve?
Ooh, not many.
I'm not sure if there were any, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some scenarios, because the bulk of them have been
The
leisure.
the ones that weren't approved were ones that were more than 50%.
Okay.
They
So
went,
technically, what probably all of the ones that are less than 50% were approved then.
I'm trying to think if there was any that weren't.
I'm gonna see if I can pull it up.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
and that's the question is, were any disapproved that were within these parameters?
Yes.
not that I can think. And also, Laura, I'm trying to look up my old ordinance real quick because, I think we need to change the language on page, hang on here, let me move some stuff around. I didn't catch it till now, but I think we need to change it to less than 50%.
No,
No,
I know that's how your ordinance reads now.
okay,
And here's why.
okay,
There's already enough math going on here.
true.
People understand 50%. And that's why there's an example there. If you move back one page. If you go to the prior page. I'm trying to look up two things at once. That doesn't work too good. Okay, so under criteria B, number 1, the request requirement is for no more than 50%. For example, if the required setback is 30 feet, administrative waiver cannot exceed 15 feet. If you want me to reword that back to less than 50%, the wording sort of works.
Okay.
And I can do that. I just
No.
did it because this makes it simple.
Yes, and we're talking an inch difference in some cases. You know, instead of, 15 feet, 9 inches, or 15.9,
Yes.
so,
We are not talking with engineers
right,
or surveyors. We're talking with everyday folks.
right.
15 feet that's an easy number to understand.
This is a lot easier to explain and okay, now that we're good.
So remember that remember that discussion? Easy math.
Oh,
Well, that's okay. We've had a lot of discussions lately.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Okay, I'm trying to remember where we had that research. Becca did.
But I know we presented it to you, and truthfully, I'm trying to think of any that were not granted on the quantitative.
Oh, you know what? I think we presented it to the Board of Adjustment. Maybe we didn't show it to this group. That might have been the case.
Okay.
I'm looking there. Let's see. Well, I'm not able to pull it up quick. Okay, I know we have it, because Becca pulled it together from our cases.
But the bulk of the Board of Adjustment cases are on quantitative setbacks.
I think we're okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
We're not even.
if we haven't
Yeah.
had seriously 100%, but if they've approved 100%.
It's a high number, the percentage, but if it's not 100, it's 90 some percent of them,
I would prefer to see 100%. It's just what I'm,
well,
but it's also, this is part of the Board of Adjustment too.
right, and here's
You know.
part of it. So, and typically if something's not gonna happen, there's a good argument for it, and that would be the neighbor that's not signing the letter.
And then it goes to the board.
And then it goes to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
Yes,
This is a situation where everybody's agreeing anyway.
You
Yeah,
gotta have 100% agreement.
you would have to have 100%
Yeah, so,
agreement
I mean, yeah.
of, and not within 500 feet, it'd be within, well, excuse me, it'd be
Everybody
the adjoining, just the adjoining
Yeah,
neighbors, so
And
would have
that's
to,
what they would affect.
Yeah.
right.
Okay, all right.
Right, so the idea is that you've got the people who are most impacted by a setback, the people who own the property on any of the sides of the property, saying they're okay with it. It's no more than 50%. And so we don't need to have a public hearing to confirm that everybody's okay with it. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, well, seriously look at what is the Board of Adjustments workload and where can we move things to the staff level? Because we do have a lot of things that they are looking at, and now with the wind energy could be looking at. So this is also part of the process of your ordinance may not be broken, but it could maybe use a tweak. And so this is one of those tweaks to ensure we're still following the regulations, but we're doing it in a way that is hopefully more efficient, but still is, and also we want to encourage people to improve their properties. Now, I think one thing Lori and I discussed, and I'm not sure if we put it in here. Let me share this with the commission. In Dubuque, we only did this for residential properties. We didn't do it for commercial or industrial. We could restrict it to that here if that was the case. Almost every, in fact, Lori, didn't you tell me all the cases were residential?
They were. Yeah.
So, and our thinking was, you know, this is someone's this may be their only asset. It may be their major investment. Let's let them make improvements, but not without some knowledge and input from their neighbors. And if everyone is okay with it, let's move forward. If not, we have other options.
Actually, I'm thinking this, no, they haven't all been R1.
Have had some?
Yeah, because I'm thinking of a rural property down by Miles. There was setbacks, and you know, it was a rural property, an old house. They were building onto it. They had to get creative to get around the septic and the well and other things.
But it was a residential use.
It was residential use, but ag
That's-
zone.
Well, I meant in terms of the use, Laura. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
It looked like all your cases were for residential uses.
Res use. And the one last month was, it was A1 zoning, but for res use.
Yeah, that's it. We focused on residential. So commissioners, if that makes it more palatable, that certainly won't be a problem because that's probably where the cases are coming from anyway. It appears, at least in terms of the records that as far back as we've researched to date.
I think we leave it as it is.
We're
I
good
mean,
with it.
you know.
We're good with it.
You
I
know,
think Rick is speaking for everybody.
Okay,
yeah, I think,
all right, great.
I think the
We are
intent
We are gonna run this by the Board of Adjustment, but just timing wise, your meeting proceeds there, so. And then if we want to go back to the next page, Lori, thank you. Then we have the temporary use permits.
Hold on, wait a minute, Laura.
Yep,
I think one thing that we ought to add in here, it talks about the contact with adjoining abutting property owners. If we can get an electronically signed form, I think that should also be in there rather than mail, because I mean, I think that should also be an option in this for the contact as well. So both mail and electronic.
Sure, we can do that.
Either or.
They could return either one, or they have the option to use
Yes.
either.
And Becca's agreeing to that comment, with the geo permitting. And I know she's even thought a little bit about, what that might look like.
Okay, and so we can add that, and it also sounds like we can also find a way to make it happen, which is even better.
Yeah, like I said, Becca, I'm putting thought into
Okay.
that.
I just-
She's,
Do you really want more paper when you can have electronically signed copies that?
No, no, we don't. I'll speak for Becca. No, we don't.
no.
Great idea. Okay. Okay, and I think, that's an easy amendment. We can do that by consensus if you'd like.
Do you guys want to do that by consensus?
Yes.
Okay,
By consensus is yes, yes.
Yes.
okay. All right, so then, we also put in that,
I know.
We have.
the next section is for temporary use permits. I can amend, we mentioned that, we've looked at that as part of the districts. And then, I'm trying to see if there's anything. And that's pretty much the end of the amendment for this section. The next page is just really just one or two words, so.
Sorry, I was doing some other writing and I put on the wrong page. All right.
That's okay. So I think, that if you want to bring up the clean version, then it's that.
We can skip right through the green version.
So that we can just go through that. That is a little easier to read.
We can skip that, Laura. We.
Okay, wonderful. We'll just move on to the next one.
Thank
Okay.
you, ladies.
We're not done yet, honey. So,
Okay, so the next chapter is for the Board of Adjustment. They have a couple of updates that happened because of action just last month. They have been given a new power for dimensional variances under Iowa code.
just, Laura, I need to, Monica's question if they need to go
Do
through
we
this.
need to go through the Board of Adjustment? Can we just accept if they want to make any changes to this chapter, that we accept it? Because do we really want to get involved, and do we really need? It's
entirely up to you. I did not want to shortchange you. This is part of the ordinance, but if
Yeah.
you'd like to do that, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that,
Okay.
that's up to you.
Is
but
that a general
that's-
consensus? Got some
Yeah.
thumbs up, some good nods?
I want to tell them how to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
their consensus is that they will accept what the Board of Adjustment finds,
Yeah,
works for them,
that's acceptable.
Great,
is acceptable to them, so.
wonderful.
Yep.
Go ahead and let's see. What's next is, I think, the zoning commission's chapter.
Yeah.
Remember, right?
You guys finally have a chapter, you know that? You guys didn't have a chapter before.
Paragraph baby.
I don't even know if you guys had a paragraph hardly.
Actually, the Board of Adjustment didn't really have one either.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It's all kind of smushed together. So when we get through the Board of Adjustments chapter, and I think our next item is, oh, you're already there and I'm still trying to catch up. Thank you. Okay, so we have a new chapter for the commission. You did see this. But we have done just some revisions and updates just by working out things for the Board of Adjustment and some other chapters. So overall, there are new chapters that talk about the creation of the commission, its proceedings, its powers and duties under Iowa code. We updated the existing information about text amendments and rezonings, and we added a section on the comprehensive plan. And so you have, when you get into the red line, there's a lot because it's a new chapter. But the information on the proceedings is taken from Iowa code and from standard ordinance language for boards and commissions in other zoning ordinances. And that's what we're seeing on page 1. Page 2 is similar amendment, giving you a set of written procedures, standards for review for each of your review areas that are standardized. And they're the standards for review. Let's see, we're on right now. The section that we're looking at on page 2 is for your ordinance amendments, amending the text as opposed to amending the map. So this might be something you want to take a look at. Again, the standards for review that we had shared with you were whether or not the zoning the current regulations are valid, if there's a need to modify, and whether the proposed, I guess it probably should say text amendment, is consistent. So an example of this would be, I think the data mining would be a text amendment. So those would be those standards, and I'd make that change there. Zoning to text amendment. The commission, unlike the Board of Adjustment, sends its recommendations to the supervisors. And so we have a recommendation there. We do have a 45-day time limit in there. We can leave that, or we could take it out. Lori, I think I was thinking we were okay with this one, but I want to just pause here for the commission to think about it and you to think about it.
And that's on the text amendment or on the rezoning part itself?
Top of page
It's
top of page 3. I'm not even on the right page.
yeah, I think that's what.
I'm looking through the clean version. I find it easier.
it says rezoning, but it should say text amendment. For some reason, I got it mixed up. Imagine that. It all starts to look the same, I guess. So this would be for the text amendment, but quite frankly, they can take as long as a rezoning, as the data mining has shown. So one of the reasons we have timeframes in there is to have things move along. One of the things Lori and I have talked about with timelines, and we've suggested removing most of them, is all you need is a contentious project that needs some time for people to understand it, the applicant to gather more information, and then a winter storm, and then pretty soon your 45 days is gone, but everybody's still willing to talk. So my gut reaction is maybe we should pull that out. The tendency for commissions to drag things out, I think was the concern, but that typically doesn't happen. You may take a long time to do something, but it's because you're being thorough.
It's
not because you're
really
dragging
not the commission that's dragging it out, though.
I think I would,
Yeah, because, oh, go ahead.
I think I would pull it out. I just keep thinking of how many months did we spend on when?
Yeah.
18, 19?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it says the commission's final report. If we've already, if it's our final report, then all the hashing is already
It's
done, and
done.
the 45 minutes is irrelevant to us.
No, that's
The
true.
only thing is the 45 days is about, if for some reason the supervisors don't meet. Like she said, a storm or something,
But they.
but do they meet every 2 weeks?
No,
They're
every week.
weekly, every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, okay, then
So
we'll do
so
it.
you certainly should be able to deal with it in 45 days.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking we can make it shorter, that's what I was trying to think.
So I think is our consensus then you're okay with this? Because it's your final report.
It's a final
Yeah,
review. It's
final.
not working on the ordinance
Yeah,
because
that's
that's,
a final report,
Okay.
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good. We want to check on that. So we'll leave that in. Then I think probably, let's see, that if we go on, the next is the map change, which is your rezoning process. This already existed, so you're gonna see a mix here of red and black font. So we used some of your existing language, and then we put in the information here about fee, mailing the notices, what the public hearing process, just general outline is. And then we added standards for review. And then those are shown on page 5. If you want to move to page 4, Lori, I'm sorry, I got ahead of you there.
That's okay.
Page 4 shows the fee, the notice, the hearing, and then really page 5 is the standard. So if you want to go to that page, these are the current standards, which I think are still valid and would recommend you keep them. So we really didn't make any changes to those, just added some procedural backing for you. And then here's that same language then that you were comfortable with. Again, it's the final report, 45 days. Language on conditional rezoning, that would be similar to what you were discussing as rezoning with restrictions. This is allowed under Iowa code. And the text in green is your current language, which also mirrors Iowa code. Basically, the property owner has to agree to it in writing before the public hearing, before usually it would be before the Board of Supervisors, but it can also be before the zoning commission. And I understand you try to avoid these, and that's a good practice. But it's in here because it's part of Iowa code. So people do have an option to ask for it. Whether it's granted or not is up to the commission and the board.
Question, or can we go back on something?
Yeah.
Okay, can we go back to page 4 and where it talks notice shall be given at least 10, no more than 20 days, Iowa code section. So the 10 and 20 public notice of public hearing is that section. And then it also flows into general circulation by contact it talks about notifying the neighbors within 100 feet. Does that also, are we mirroring that 10 to 20, or does that not have a timeline?
So I'm gonna try to find my Iowa code section real quick.
And the reason it's just at the top of my mind right now, because 10 minutes before the meeting, I'm talking to somebody that's upset because, well, we just got it. Well, they were sent out Friday. They didn't get them till Wednesday or Thursday of last week. And I'm like, so.
The notice was in the newspaper.
Yes, and that's what I reminded them.
And
yeah, they were. We followed Iowa code in that section, but I was just making sure that there's no requirement. I mean, we know it's a courtesy, and if it's a courtesy and not a requirement, do we have to, we try to mail them out, a solid 10, 11, 12 days in advance.
Right.
There's
And then
in the Court of Appeals of Iowa, October 12th, 2007, that deals with this on a cell phone tower in Boone County. And the resident said he didn't receive his notice. And the Board of Appeals told him tough, it was in the newspaper and they were sent out. And so if it is in the newspaper, which is required by Iowa law, yes, you have to mail them a copy, but, because it was in the newspaper, timely filed, even though he didn't get the newspaper, the original, the original court hearing was affirmed that, yes, I can send you this.
Okay, but as long as we're not, whoops, stuck to a time limit where we have to prove that we've mailed them out 10 days, more than 10 or less than 20 days before the hearing. So we're still good that way then, right, Laura? And you guys feel the same thing?
Yeah, I don't think the mailing's required at
Okay,
all.
that's courtesy.
Which always makes people upset when they don't get it or
Oh,
when they
tell
get
me
it.
about it.
And
Or they're 105 feet out of the notification.
our favorite is the person waving the notice in their hand at the hearing. That's our all-time favorite up in Dubuque. I just got this notice. Well, you got it. Okay, then. Did you read it? Actually, our commission never asked that question that way. They were much more polite, just like you are. So, anyway, I will double check on all that because I want to make sure something didn't come through in this last session that I somehow missed about public notices. But I think the longstanding practice is you need to put it in a newspaper of general circulation. Whether a person subscribes to a newspaper or not, I think the thinking is typically those are available at public libraries, which are open to the public and require no cost except getting to the library or something like that. The mailing out of notices is generally done by cities and counties, but is not a requirement, but I'm gonna double check. And I think we're okay there, but I'll double check for you.
Okay, and I know the one thing too that I'm figuring out, the mail's not as reliable as it was.
No.
The timing, it's because you retired, right?
It is, definitely.
It seems like the timelines that 2 to 3 days is now that 3 to 5. Which is.
Yeah. Well, we had that issue with Dubuque. We could pretty much 2 to 3 day, 1 day sometimes. People get it the very next day. But when things were rerouted to Cedar Rapids to come back to Dubuque, yeah, we had the same thing happen. Notices took a lot longer to get to people because they were going to Cedar Rapids and coming back. But right now, I think I'll just check on the code of Iowa and see where we stand. I feel like we're in good shape and that you're doing above and beyond what the code requires, which maybe not is, and you're also doing something that posting it on a website. I know somebody may not have access to the technology, but it is also another way. Plus it's posted in the building. So I feel like you're making an effort to comply, exceed the requirements. I'll just double check and make sure what those are. After we get through that rezoning section, we provide you with a section on the comprehensive plan. And after the fact, but nonetheless, this is based on using some of the same procedures that we have in the other powers and duties for you. The standards of review are pretty simple. We've got 3 of them here on page 7. Are you still on changes? Lori, do you want to go to, I'm sorry, I'm moving faster. So really it was just.
Sorry for moving fast.
Yeah, and so then just that, the whole process you lived through, you made a recommendation and it was voted on by the Board of Supervisors. Now, this one has a filing the final report within 30 days. We could move it to 40 days for consistency.
The other one was 45, I think.
Yeah, the other 2 were. Okay. So I think we're at the end of the comprehensive plan. Yep, that's the end of the chapter.
Does the
So-
commission want to go through the
Main version?
clean version or not?
Yeah, that's what I was going through.
Yeah,
I think.
for-
I was gonna say, that's what I've been going through is
Yeah.
clean version.
Okay.
It's easy.
They've been following on the clean versions, some of them.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So,
I know it's hard to read those red lines. We're just really trying to be as transparent as possible, although we're transparent in a confusing way. So, okay. All right, when you're all through, are you all at the end of your review of that clean version then?
I am.
So
They're ready to go to the revised matrix? Yes?
yeah, well, before we got off of chapter 5, though, I just want to make sure by consensus, I've got some typos to correct. We're going to check on the public notices under Iowa code, and then we're going to make the change on page 7 to 30, from 30 to 45 days. And do we have a consensus on those changes for chapter 5?
Yes.
Great, okay,
I see
wonderful.
affirmatives.
Okay, so the next item is revised matrix of allowed uses. So yeah, Lori, we can move to that one now. If you want to zip through the clean version there. There we go. So we've been using this to kind of keep track of which uses are in which kind of category. So one of the things that we didn't cover with you as part of the Board of Adjustment is we're recommending that special exceptions be a special exception in uses that the Board of Adjustment votes on be considered as something that requires a conditional use permit. We talked to the Board of Adjustment about this last month. We'll talk to them about it on Monday. The idea is that these uses and exceptions, if you recall, they're a list of uses or structures or uses and structures in concert that have a set of conditions placed on them. You can do a ready mix concrete plant under the following conditions, A, B, C. So most cities and many counties are now using that term conditional use permit. It really doesn't change anything other than it's called something different. So now the matrix is identifying with the letter C, conditional use permit. That is the new name or the recommended new name for special exceptions. And so that's really a change there. What I then do, Lori, if we can walk through that, we can go through that first matrix. Our intention is to get this matrix into one, but we're still working through it. So eventually it'll be something that's in the document as part of the ordinance. This is our 5th draft. Everything that's highlighted in yellow is somewhere where we've made some changes. Most of that is changing things from special exception to conditional. Really not anything major at this point. We could go to the next page, Lori. Yeah, this page only has one, for example. Nonetheless, I want to make sure that you're aware of these changes as we make them. We can go to the next page, Lori. Yeah, I think that, yep, okay, so that one's just the conditional uses. And if we want to go to the next. Okay, this one has a little bit more to it. We are And some of that, and you can see a lot of it's related to conditional use. We also, we're working on cell tower regulations for new and existing. So that pops up there on that page. And then go to the next page, Lori. At our previous meeting, we determined we were going to delete the use called intermittent or temporary commercial activity. You see that pulled out. And then we did talk about having logging added. And as we just keep going down through through the next page, yep, they're all pretty much just that change for the conditional use label. Same on the next page. And I think that's the end. So no need for you to take a vote on that. This is still a work in progress. But like I said, I'm trying to keep it as transparent as possible as we work through the drafts. The next section is a review of the revised A1 agricultural district. So what we did is hopefully we made the changes that you requested at the prior meeting. Some things are still under review just because we're prioritizing what we're looking at. So in this case, we do have a red line, but if y'all are looking at the clean version, maybe we should jump to that. And what would the commission prefer?
I think they're in agreement with the yellow row here.
Okay. Seen enough red, let's move on to the clean version then. Okay. So when we look at this new ordinance or this new district, let's see, man, it is a long version in red. Okay. So we have created tables for our principal uses that are allowed. And I'll let you move at whatever pace the commission wants here. There really is, I'm trying to, well, see, I don't have my red line to tell you what changed. I might have to pull it. But this is what it would look like. What I've started to do is also use yellow, like that little 2.9. That's for me to make sure I go back and make sure these are the correct sections elsewhere where we talked about having a way to link the two. So that's why those are in yellow. Those are just a reminder for me to make sure I check on those. So I'm not sure we put anything. I don't think we put anything new. There one thing on this first page of A1, there was some question about the parking requirements for elementary, post high school, secondary, and so forth. The Institute of Transportation Engineers does studies across the country. They look at parking generation for case studies. You asked me to check on whether these were suburban, rural, urban, and the document does not indicate that. It only indicates it's an elementary school, it's a secondary school, it's a preschool. So I'd have no idea in terms of where the schools, what kind of environment the schools are in. This is a well-respected document in terms of something planners and engineers will use to look at parking requirements and how to deal with parking generation. But I can't give you any specifics on the type of schools that were looked at. Okay, so then, if we want to move on to page 2, we wrap up our principal uses and then we have a chart for our accessory uses. Stay tuned for more information on the accessory dwelling units. That's a new Iowa code adoption this year as well. If we go to the next page,
Before that, Laura, can I go on to something? You know, it's like every day is a new day and we get all kinds of questions and people want to do different things. Well, let's look at cemetery here and I can do a real life scenario here. Farm family owns several hundred acres. They're wanting to, set up their own cemetery, their family cemetery. They have, I mean, this is gonna be on a 40-acre parcel. So when we're looking at parking spaces, there's ample parking. We don't have to mark, it doesn't have to be marked, right? I mean, it's a.
No, you see how it says it's on the drives or parking areas. So you have the option to use one or both. You could have designated parking areas, spaces that are striped and clearly labeled for parking, and no parking. Maybe they don't want anybody to park on the drives because then people can't get through.
Won't be any.
Or you could park on the drives, but that's an option that if they have drives, that's an option here. So
Monica has
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Oh, God.
and this is and I think this might be your.
Seriously, if Jamie and I want to be buried on our property, we could call it a cemetery, right? And in the middle. And we need 20 spaces of parking on my farm to visit my grave. I'm sorry.
Well, hold on. You're looking at things out of context.
For a parking area.
Wait, hold on, please, hold on. The cemetery that this ordinance is anticipating is not the one Lori described. So first I was answering her question about cemeteries, where do you park? These are your current regulations for cemeteries. So what I would say, Lori, is you find a different name or designation for what they want to do, because it's not a cemetery for the public. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think
you don't need to have parking for the public. They should put in whatever they think they need for a private cemetery open only to the family. Because Monica's point is well taken. For a private cemetery, you won't need that. However, for a public cemetery, you will. So I don't want to throw that out. But I think this is a good example of, if you have something like that, we need to figure out a way to address it, hopefully without sending it to the Board of Adjustment. But that's what because that seems like a lot for that type of use. It's a pretty non-impact use in terms of traffic generation.
Public cemetery.
Could we go public and then have a private?
I don't think we should do any regulation on private.
We should regulate the just call it.
Right, and that's why private and then leave out
the parking.
And
I don't think we should have anything on private, because what is it, in Iowa law, you can be buried on your own property when you just have to disclose it.
But you have to go before the zoning commission? No.
no, this is permitted, principal use and structures. This is permitted. This means that
No, I'm saying you've got somebody who wants to put a private cemetery on their land.
So-
They don't need permission?
no, it's permitted use.
So let's, hold on, may I jump in here, please? Okay, my note is, we're gonna make this say public cemeteries.
Right.
Yes.
I I would suggest that we look under, let's just go back up to page 2, accessory, oh, you're already there, page 2, accessory uses. Look at the first one that's listed there. Uses and structures clearly incidental to the allowed principal uses and structures of this district. One of the other phrases that we often use is customary as well as incidental. It is customary for, as far as I can tell, in Jackson County, and probably in many counties in Iowa, for farms to have private cemeteries of family members or previous owners. I would suggest this is an accessory use that this particular applicant is requesting, and you can approve it as such. And you don't have any parking requirements. Does that sound like a reasonable way to handle these type of things?
Yeah.
Lori, I've got a question. The cemetery at Cottonville,
It's been there forever.
is that a public cemetery?
I would assume it is, because it wasn't at a church cemetery.
I think it, I don't know if it was or not.
Well, there it could be what's called a pioneer cemetery.
Is that a public cemetery? It does not have 20 parking spaces.
But at the same time, there's been people buried there since, I mean,
It's
it's
grandfathered in.
prior to May of 1976.
And I think what we could do is we could add a allowed use of pioneer cemeteries that would not require parking.
There's no parking space.
What's the definition of a pioneer cemetery it's being developed now? That would be here.
Well, we'll have to look at what Iowa code says. I don't have that definition memorized.
Okay, because the pioneer cemeteries, they are what they are.
Exactly, and why would we want to make them go back and add parking?
I
don't.
don't think we should.
All right, let's keep moving.
Okay,
So we'll be talking more then about where we're gonna move that private cemetery, Laura.
well, I know where I put it, accessory uses and structures.
Okay,
Yep,
and in private, let's do private / family or
we'll
private,
figure out something.
yeah,
Yeah,
family or owner.
yeah, we do not want to be over-regulating something that it's too simple and basic. It's an accessory use. Let's just do
Absolutely.
that.
Okay, got it.
An example though, something that pops up. Okay, are we on the conditional uses page?
Accessory conditional.
Okay, and so this section, the regulations are probably all, right now, they're gonna be under additional regulations, they'll be in chapter 6, chapter 2.9 that we'll be creating. Then section 4.5 goes back to that chapter of the Board of Adjustment where it talks about how they handle them, how they process them, how they review them, the approval process and so forth. So for sure, those are gonna all show up there. The other thing that we did here is you'll notice they're in this another of these nice tables. Well, where are all the conditions? All the conditions are gonna be in that chapter 2.9. This is organized to give you the name of that use, what its parking requirements are, and where to go to find out more. And so that's where all that conditions will be. You will get to see them, just not right now, not tonight. Then we get to temporary uses and we're at the end of the chapter. No, we're not. We're keeping, here we go. I forgot about the development regulations, Lori. So what page are you on there?
This
Four?
is
Okay. So if you go to 5, that's your temporary uses. Okay. And then you go to 6. And then that's the chart of the development regulations. And then signs are under review. Not quite, we're working on some ways to deal with them. So those you'll see those as well when we get them finished. Right is set up for things to be in charts and tables where possible, and the conditions will be found in another chapter. Okay. Home-based businesses and related uses, we looked at this. And now this has been revised. Lori and Becca and I have worked on different examples that have come forward and trying to kind of test out how things might work. And so here's where we're landing at this point. Home occupation is currently allowed as an accessory use. We're proposing it be replaced by the Iowa Code language that now calls these types of home occupations a home-based business with the characteristics of no impact home-based business. Farm occupation currently is an accessory use just in the A1 district where farms are predominant, and it's proposed to be replaced with a similar name and similar characteristics. And then the home industry right now is a special exception, and it would stay a conditional use in the A1 district. And so it might be easier, Lori, to go to the clean version on this for the definitions. So the red line version is the definitions, but it's much easier to read them in the clean version. So these are, this is what would be in chapter 6. And so what we've done is kind of relate them back to that home-based business definition, which is taken from the Iowa Code. And then this is just their definitions. And so we're gonna, in the next section, in the clean version that Lori's brought us to.
BB.
I'm not, yep, I think you are. So because I'm not quite sure where this is going to end up, let's start with the page where it says AA home-based business at the top. I think it's, there you go. So what we decided to do, since we couldn't remember the Iowa Code, every time we talked about home-based business, we had to go look it up. We said, you know what, we're just going to put the code in the ordinance because it's all important. So the first part of number 1 is the definitions that are in the Iowa Code that talk about a no impact home-based business. The second one is in the Iowa Code. The third one is from the Iowa Code. This is the one we always said. Lori said, do I get to charge them need to have them get a permit? And the answer is no. If they're a no impact home-based business, meet all these qualifications, they're fine. That's what Iowa Code says. However, Iowa Code says you can also, as a county, under number 4, you can have some reasonable regulations, and they need to be for these purposes, A, B, C. Okay, and then we can go to, let's see, we can go to number 5. Number 5 is from the code, and so is number 6. So now when we get to number 7, here's where we pulled in what you currently have for Jackson County. And so these are your regulations. We're trying to make it, and actually this Lori this is the status quo. This is what you have to do now. It has to be members of the family, no more than one person outside the family. You can't have any exterior display or storage. 30% of the floor area maximum, and then the last one, no offensive noises and so forth. So I think that's it's pretty close to what you have. Now, I think we may have tried to clarify some of the wording. Is that right, Lori?
Yeah, if Monica has a question.
I do
Laura.
have a question because I know what we have right now for the home-based business, but on 7D, for the residential property for employees shall be members of the family residing on the premises and no more than one person outside the immediate family on the premises. However, if you get a daycare center and which can be considered a home-based business, that, depending on how many children you have and their ages, that is dictated by DHS on how many workers you have.
Exactly. And that one, Lori and I identified, we will deal with that separately, not as a home-based business, but as a daycare. And that's what we did in Dubuque as well, because it's different for the very reason you gave. So what we'll do is we'll have regulations that will facilitate daycare in homes that will more closely relate back to the DHS regulations than this home-based business, because this does present problems for trying to facilitate daycare. So that's a great question. We also came up with that point. So we're going to try to deal with that separately and bring that forward to you.
Can I ask a question? So
Sure.
If the Iowa code is in this ordinance, and if that is, how does that get updated?
I was wondering that too, Sandra.
Well, this is exactly what's happening here. Your home-based business, currently it's a home occupation in your ordinance. The Iowa legislature passed a law for home-based business, and now it's up to cities and counties to amend their ordinances to reflect the home-based business of changes of Iowa code. We have a couple other things that we're doing, just happened to be passed in April by the legislature, signed by the governor, that we now have to put into your ordinance. Kind of handy because we're updating it anyway. But this is one of the things that happens. And so a few years ago, we had legislation for short-term rentals, and cities and counties were directed to update their ordinances to include the state code language for short-term rentals.
So basically, just to answer the question though, is if the state code changes, then we've got to change what's in here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it was a process. Yes, yes, if the state code changes, yes, and these particular recent changes have been that, counties and cities shall do these things, not may. Yeah. Some of it is you shall do this, and then there's you may do this as well. So yeah, yes, if the code of Iowa is amended and it impacts a county or a city zoning ordinance, then it's incumbent on us to get it changed and match that code.
Okay, so Iowa code changes, we're bringing this back to our zoning commission. We're going through the public hearings. We're recommending to the Board of Supervisors the amended language. And so we're presenting the whole ordinance again to be republished?
No, just the section.
Section, okay. Okay, And is there any way to, instead of making that change and having to take it back to the Board of Supervisors and the zoning commission, to add additional language to our ordinance stating, we will comply with, should this code change, 335.15, that we,
That the zoning, the zoning orders will change to reflect that.
That's a question for your attorney. When the Iowa code says cities and counties shall adopt an ordinance.
we lost you there.
But
The Iowa code says cities and counties shall adopt an ordinance that says such and such. I think the easiest thing to do is just to amend that section of your ordinance to comply with the new Iowa code.
right, but what she's asking is, do we add a sentence that will automatically update that so we don't have to go through the process of taking it to the Board of Supervisors and such?
I don't know how you can automatically update it because your code won't state it.
Okay, then that answers the question.
And it could be contradictory language then. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a nice idea, but I think it could backfire.
No.
Okay, Sandra has a follow-up question.
So how does it work if we've handed this out to somebody? And then the code changes before they get done what they're supposed, or what they had requested? Do they just have to follow what we give them?
No, they got
At that
to stay
time?
wrong.
Yeah,
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, do they have a time limit to get that done?
yes, and we have a whole section coming on that. It's called nonconformities. So basically, if someone in good faith, the zoning administrator and the applicant say, okay, I want to build this, I'm going to do this, whatever it is, and this is the ordinance, and I do everything it says, and then state code says, now you need to change the ordinance. And oh, darn, it's not what that person did. Well, it's okay. They have done everything that they were supposed to under the code that was in force and adopted at that time. And so our non-conforming section recognizes that and allows them to continue that use or that structure, and even in some cases expand it perhaps. So we don't make somebody in the middle of a project now meet some new code, at least not through zoning. Zoning almost always grandfathers everything. If it's an illegal use, you don't get out of it. If it's a legal use, then you do. You're okay. You followed the law in force at the time.
So BB, farm home based business.
Yes.
Second line on the right side, a farm home, so that should be changed to home based business.
I see it. Yep.
So, but the other thing is, it's kind of confusing and not consistent because we have a farm home based business and then we have a farm based business. So I'm not quite sure exactly what all this paragraph is trying to convey.
It should all say farm home-based business.
So the third line on the right-hand side, a farm-based business.
We missed a word there. Home.
Yeah, right there.
Yep. Got it.
Did you want me to send this to her?
Oh, what I just emailed to you?
Yeah.
No, because that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I
Okay.
said it just so that I wouldn't forget.
Okay, got it.
Oh, yeah, good catch. This one does trip me up, obviously. So the intention here was to be consistent and not try to confuse you. Sorry about that.
It is very confusing because I can think of numerous things Um. On this one, so this paragraph needs some work.
Do you have any suggestions that you want to send us?
Yeah, remove it. I mean, and start over.
Some of it's actually following Iowa code though. I mean, the bulk of this is following Iowa code.
But the wording.
Well, okay, well, I would say we're using the current language. Other than the reference to the home-based business legislation, this is your current language.
I know it's our language. What I'm saying is we need to fix it because it's confusing. And
what part of it is confusing? Because it's also the same language we're using for home-based business, so we really would need to know what's not clear.
so a farm-based business, I mean, it's agriculture, so number one.
Didn't she already say she just left a word out there?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I mean, a farm home-based business, I mean, I'm not sure what this is trying to restrict, to be perfectly honest.
Well, if you don't think it's necessary, we can eliminate it if that's the consensus of the commission.
I mean, I would think so,
That's
but-
fine too. It's confusing to me, but it's in your ordinance, so I was trying to accommodate it. Lori, can you help us out with any examples, or
Well,
have you done any of these?
just had one.
So like Behringer Family Farms, so they raise cattle, they package it themselves, it's a mail order business. They produce other things that, you know, jam, jelly, like other different things. They have a store on their farm site. So I would say that's a home farm business. And I don't know that they might have more than 1 or 2 employees that come from outside their family farm. So would that be restricted under this?
It gets really murky because a lot of things are agricultural, farm related. It might be.
I'm taking this as, I'm sorry, Laura.
What do you
What
think?
I'm taking,
Go ahead.
I'm taking this as is, it's a business that's inside the home that's, you know, it's a home-based business. That's the way I've been reading it all along. For example, Nancy Kirk on a farm, you know, on their acreage, she has I forget what she calls it, but it's an embroidery service. Farm, home-based business. That's the way I was reading it,
But see-
not an agricultural.
Yeah, so
That doesn't fall because that is not incidental and secondary to the operation of the farm. Embroidery business has nothing to do with.
But that was just a bad example. What I'm saying is, I guess I was reading it.
Thomas, I think you're spot on. You're talking about that one particular business, that would be a farm home-based business. It is not ag exempt because it's not part of the farming industry.
Okay, but why do we care?
but it's
So
a,
here's my
it's
question.
a,
Why would, hold on, Laura. Why
yep,
would we
sorry.
care? It's a home-based business.
Right,
Doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's not a farm or not.
right.
Why
Well-
do we have this? It would
Well-
fall under a home-based business.
Monica, you know any farmers that think they're exempted from everything?
Well,
But
but Lori, I think Monica's right.
Just a minute, Laura. What I'm saying
sorry.
is, if you've got a home-based business, it does not matter whether you are on a farm or if you are on an acreage or if you're in a place in town or if you're at Leisure Lake. It's a home-based business.
Yeah.
I
It is
agree.
not incidental to a farm.
Yeah. I agree.
So.
I agree, Monica. Yep.
Yeah,
So what do we have it?
okay, I think
because
it
it's
just,
not Iowa code.
because it mentions that it's not farm exempt.
Well, I think it was something that was, to me, it looks like something that was trying to allow for home-based businesses on farms that are related to the farm, which really doesn't need to be done because under,
That's what I'm
the
getting at.
Iowa code definitions, those examples of the meat packing mailing order would likely be considered agricultural and therefore farm exempt. But the person doing embroidery who happens to live on a farm, it's just a home-based business. I agree with Monica. I don't think it really does anything that we can't already do without this definition. I think she's right. I don't think you need it.
I'm kidding, Laura.
I'm sorry, I'm tired and it's confusing to me, and I'm trying to figure out
Well,
what you were right, what were we trying to accomplish here?
Okay, so
Yeah, I agree. I don't know.
I
I don't think it's necessary. I think it's confusing.
I don't wanna just get rid of it if there's a purpose that needs served here.
And part of it is we don't always know the purpose until that real life scenario hits. And
That's
then
what
it
I'm
would-
saying is,
2 years from now, we're like, damn.
Well, but
we had that.
when you're gone.
here's the thing,
the guy's sitting there thinking, why don't they have something that covers this?
well, and I think we do. Between what you can do in terms of being on a farm, that things that are related to the farm under Iowa code for farm products and farm operations, I think you're covered there. And if you got something different, you've got a home-based business. And then if you're still not covered, you can go to the next item, which is a home industry. I agree with Monica that we could eliminate the farm home-based business. It is confusing. It seems to be, to me, with my understanding of Iowa code and farms and agriculture, it's really not needed. It's already there. And if it's something like embroidery, it's a home-based business under the previous category. I'm okay with it. I don't think you're gonna lose any options for anyone, Tom, by eliminating it. I really don't.
Tired, I might read it differently.
I'm sorry, you guys are talking over each other. What are you saying down there, Sandra?
I said, this is not the final ordinance yet, that if we strike it now and come up with something between now and when we finish this, it's not like we can't bring it back. I mean,
Or we
if
can leave
think
it now
about-
and strike it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is, if we strike it, it's gone. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we need to think about it more, cause and as, I agree, Monica, we're all tired.
Yeah. I think we should leave it and then, review it at the next meeting and maybe with fresher eyes. So that we can
Sounds good.
understand it.
All right.
So I think are we close to the end? Gosh, I hope so.
Close. We have rules of procedure next.
So the home industry was basically for a business that had more employees. And that one would be a conditional use permit. And so we were trying to keep the home-based business at the status quo, which was no more than one employee outside the family, and then a home industry. That's something the Board of Adjustment reviews, and the number of employees is whatever the board approves. And so that's how we were going to handle that. So that will bringing you back, we'll be bringing you back the revisions as you asked for it. Lori, do you want to do their rules of procedure tonight, or do you want to push it to next meeting?
How about, guys,
Next
meeting? Okay. Next meeting, please.
It's not times. This one is it seemed to fit with everything else we were working on. But it certainly doesn't have the same time frame as the ordinance. All right, so I believe we're done with that item. Going on to the next meeting. That's the end of that packet. Great job, good discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, have a good evening, everybody. Don't think about anything farm or home-based business Just go home and relax. Put your feet up. Have a nice night. Bye. Bye.
You
I
guys,
move that we table the data mining to next meeting.
I know we keep dragging that out, but we got, yeah.
I know,
I gotta-
This part wasn't so long.
I gotta just say, she does a wonderful job, but having her on Zoom is very confusing because we got people asking questions and she doesn't hear it. She keeps talking and we're talking over each other. And I don't know if we're trying to save money or what by not bringing her in here in person, but it's helpful when she's here in person.
I agree, but one time when I was sick, I couldn't, I was trying to get in and no one, I couldn't
Right.
hear other people. Yeah, I admit it's a challenge. And for us, we just had so much on our plate. It's kind of like she'd be sitting here for a long time and what last time, how many, sometimes we have a lot more going on in front of it.
Right.
So
I'm just saying, it's difficult when we're trying to have the person running the meeting on Zoom.
okay. Yeah, okay, we can talk about bringing her in and we'll see what next meeting looks like. But I know you guys really don't want to talk data processing, but can I just share with you the definition
Sure.
that I came up with? I know, and I stole it from, I didn't steal it. Okay, I truly plagiarized language out of Johnson County. It covers it.
So they do include the mining.
Yep.
Until they add something else that they're gonna call a data center that's not covered.
Well, but at the same time, it has
It's fairly
houses
comprehensive.
computers or network equipment, systems, servers, appliances, and other associated components related to digital data storage and operations.
So can we put data centers may include
Yeah,
commercial cryptocurrency mining?
that's a good idea. Big
I
yes.
think that's something
includes-
includes.
Big meeting.
But there,
I gotta tell you though, just in the industry, and I talked to you about this, in the industry, data centers and crypto mining facilities are not considered the same thing.
No, but they talk about them like they are, so that's the problem.
And you're absolutely right, that's the problem, and the industry is really trying to make a push to get away from that.
Are they, what, the
Well, we
actual
are.
industry or like the people that are zoning and being
Well,
asked?
we're
to have
trying
these
to push it so the people, our members, understand the difference.
Okay,
But I mean, I don't know how far I get what you're saying.
yeah, the industries are trying to confuse
Yeah.
people to put them in.
Well, no, the industries are trying to make it clear by separating the two. Because people think they're the same and they are not, they're totally
Yeah.
different.
But when they present the proposals, they call themselves data centers. Don't they? I mean, that's what we got.
I shouldn't
We got what
say,
we got
when
from
I say the
Citgo,
industry, I mean the power supply.
Exactly, no, I
Yeah.
know that, but yeah, no, I'm. not
and this is
disagreeing with
still
you there.
draft language, we'll leave it and, move on
Yeah,
next time.
Hold on. I did make a motion to move this to next meeting, but do we want to put it as, scroll back. Do we want to put it as data centers? Because it doesn't necessarily have to process data. You can have storage where all they do is have servers, a server farm, and store data. It doesn't necessarily have to.
And that
process.
is the data center.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to process anything.
You put data.
You're talking about the cloud, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
and that
they
is
list
data
all that
center.
under data centers.
And we list, related to digital data storage and
I
operations.
think you're just trying to call people that are trying to fool by calling it data center.
You know, yeah, I get it.
I'm gonna stick to my guns on, I think we ought to call a crypto mining facility, or however you wanna word it, and data centers is something different.
I agree.
I wouldn't.
So do you wanna
be
call
upset.
Yeah, so you wanna call data centers everything up to, and then have a sub with the,
I wanna call crypto mining separate, yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, what you got up there for the data centers is basically correct, other than the crypto.
So have that under a separate thing, or a sub, or what?
Yeah, separate is what I
Totally
was.
separate? Okay. Then we can just add on as people add on things. Yeah, okay.
I mean,
I know that.
things are changing all the time.
So
We weren't,
fast, yeah.
we weren't expecting crypto, mining in Macocata Valley Electric's footprint a year ago. You know, I mean, we knew it was out there, but we weren't expecting it to come into our area. So,
Yeah, she did.
Well, the first I heard about it, I think was July or June of last year.
yeah, I shouldn't say a year ago, probably more, for us, it was probably more like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe it was gonna come here.
Yeah,
I was aware of it, but I didn't believe it was gonna come here, and turns out you know, Iowa, they really like the looks of Iowa.
They like the cheap energy.
Well, they like the capacity, they like the capacity.
And
so, all right, so I'll get some new language for that
And cheap, yeah, cheap.
And we'll-
and
Yeah.
delete this, guys.
Yeah, I don't think we should have any business in the demand load, because that is
That's the
purely, that's the energy company, and does not fall under zoning.
I agree.
Yeah, because like what part of land use is this, right?
It's not,
Right. Okay,
okay,
all right, so
so,
I'm gonna hit save and I will close this bad boy out if you guys say go ahead.
Now, treat your motion seriously.
Well,
I did,
if you made a motion,
I made a
anybody
motion.
have a second?
I second it right now.
yes, and
No, I
Chris
just,
is, or somebody else seconded it.
okay, I
Somebody
just wanna
did.
make sure we get. All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? That motion passes.
I
Where
looked
are
at my phone here a little bit ago, it's 8:15, now I looked down, it's 9:30 almost, how did that happen?
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Look at the storm outside.
I know, that's what I was trying to
Next.
avoid.
Next meeting?
Yeah, you were.
Don't leave, we're not done yet.
Next meeting, Monday, June 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Okay. That calendar behind you, Mike, is a good tool for me.
I thought you were looking at me.
No, well, above your head.
So I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anybody second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We're finished. Thank you.